Nobody tells you how to build a business from 0 to 10K. Every single person out there, every guru, every coach, every entrepreneur's guide and help teaches you how to scale when you're already making money, right? They want to sell you help and support when you are already on your way up. Thing is, they're not technically wrong. When you're on your way up, you're still going to need help at every single level along the way up. The problem is they don't know how to start, right? Because starting a business and getting your first 10K of reoccurring revenue can be probably the most difficult part about it. Sure, to anyone watching this that has businesses that are doing in the 60s and then in the hundreds and so on, say, hey, there's a lot of difficulties here too. And I'm not saying there isn't. What I am saying though is nobody's really showing these guys how to make the first 10K a month. Why? Because it is the hardest part. Starting a business at 10K a month shows that you are, we don't know if you're dedicated yet. We don't know if you have the mettle, fortitude to build something, right? If this is just an idea that you have and you kind of want to try the waters, that's why a lot of these coaches also shy away from it. But the real truth is that, well, they don't know actually how to get you there because their business model relies on other people already being successful. A very close friend of mine that I did a lot of business with, he actually made a lot of my products. So he was the manufacturer for my my range in one of the countries that I sell into. Like, Vlad, my business model is quite easy. I make money off other people's ideas. So you never really had the problem of getting that first initial idea to then scale the idea. He was providing a service, and that service was facilitating other people's ideas. And to me, that made a lot of sense. I'm like, I respect that. You're making money off other people's ideas, and you understand that, and you're there as a service. The problem is, when you don't know how to help people make their first 10K, a lot of these guys that are jumping into the coaching space, they've never done it before. They're trying to help somebody build a business, and they have no business experience whatsoever. And then they're trying to coach people because they've read some books, and on top of it, they probably got a little bit of advice from their LLMs, from Claude or whatever. How do I help scale a business? If it's after this, what should I tell the client? And it's all very generic advice. Their socials are good. That's probably one of the things that they learn how to do first. Good social media to hook people in. A lot of the people buying these courses, they're not the people that are already on the way up. They're newbies, right? And you're trying to get yourself in there, but you're new. You don't know what you're doing. So you're going to go to somebody who seems to know what they're doing and going to pay them some money, and hopefully they're going to help you out. Fortunately, the reality is they don't. Take your money, you're left scratching your head, and you're left in a poorer situation than you started off in. So the point of this video is very simple. I want to help you guys have a checklist how to make your first 10,000 reoccurring monthly revenue with your business. Now, it's very important to understand the type of business will determine how quickly you get there and how easy it will be for you to get to that hurdle. Because me, I've sold physical product. But physical products, as you can see, they're all different styles, different labels, different formulas. Everything's different. When you have a physical product, it is very different than selling a digital product. For example, you are watching this right now. One of the services I provide is selling a digital product, which is far easier than selling a physical product. Why? Well, because with the physical product, I have to know local laws, I have to know compliance, I have to know a good manufacturer, I have to know scalability, I have to know how to import, I know how to export, I need to know how to do customs clearance, I need to understand logistical upheavals and let's call it nuances depending on the region, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. The digital product, well, I will make a concept, an idea that I have, and I can put it up online and I can monetize it by speaking to you, the user, right? And I can sell you the idea, which I managed to package. It could be a course, or it could be a app, or it could be it could even be just general information, or it could even be an ebook, right? As long as it lives in a digital space, you don't really necessarily have to worry about putting it onto a container, having to talk to a customs agent, and then shipping it to physical location. So it's far easier. Now, the difference is making your first 10K with a physical product, in my opinion, is a lot easier than it is with a digital product. And we're talking about people with zero experience. Why is that? Because when you have a physical product, you're able to then go into, let's call it my case, I'm able to physically walk into a store. I'm able to show them this product and be like, hey guys, this product has X, Y, and Z. The other products on your shelf do not have X, Y, and Z. Here's the margin you're going to make with my product, and here's the margin you supposedly make with their product. Mine is better because X, Y, and Z, right? And already that's a much easier relationship, a much easier connection with the person I'm speaking to. I'm physically there, so trust is already automatically built because I am a real person. I'm not just some whoop-de-doo company in a Gmail. I have taken the time to construct something that is tangible. It is a grippable, physical, smellable, tangible thing. So people are going to give you more time of the day because they've seen, well, he's obviously had to come up with this, and then he's got to have it packaged. After it's packaged, he had to come up with the concept of the label, and the label had to then so on and so forth, and blah, 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 blah. And now it's physically here. So he's obviously gotten past the whole concept of shipping and compliance and yada, yada, yada. You guys understand, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you guys some tips for both parts of the puzzle, the physical product and then the digital product. So I am a buff. My bread and butter was B2B. My bread and butter was selling physical products. How do you sell physical products? How do you get your first 10K? Surprisingly easy. Surprisingly easy. If you can't make 10K selling physical products, you have a terrible product, or you probably didn't do your market research, right? So this is where this whole 0 to 10K thing matters, because there's a lot of these prerequisite questions which you should be asking yourself if you've taken care of them. And market research is one of them. Your social media should be established. You should have a decent idea of what your margins are, what your landed costs are, which comes into your margins. You should also understand your compliances and so on and so forth, right? You should also understand what are your peak periods with your shippers. Is there some sort of delay that might happen? What's your supply chain look like? Are you forecasting? And a lot of these questions are quite hard to answer in your first 10K because you don't know. How can you possibly know I need to forecast for the next 3 months if you haven't had your first sale yet? So that initial stage for a physical product is very difficult because you have to have inventory, and either two things happen. The first one is it sells out and you're kind of screwed in a certain way because people are going to like your product, and then it's going to take you, potentially 2 months to get your restock. By that time, they've tried to find an alternative, or you've lost momentum, and that can be just as bad as it not selling. You have stock already. So really important nuances, guys, to understand. When you sell a physical product, you have to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And what I want you guys to do, let's say you are selling a physical product, choose your category. So let's say, for example, you decided to choose sports supplements. I did, and you want to sell a product. Start with one product. Do not do a range. Do not do a range of different products. You're going to waste a lot of money testing and trying out. My recommendation is start with one good idea, one good product, and get a small MOQ sent to you so you can do a test market run. What you then want to do is you want to find about 5 different customers, 5 different retail outlets. Make sure they're not a part of a corporate entity. They're not a part of a franchise chain. They're not part of a bigger group. They're a small, independent mom and pop shop. These are the best ones to work with because you're already talking business owner. You're talking to the person makes the decisions. You don't need to go into a corporate office. You don't need to talk to a buyer. You don't need to present them, usually most of the time, a marketing plan, a strategy plan, a margin plan, all the requirements for a B2B business of that level. You don't need to do that with a mom and pop shop. What you do need to do is you come in, you have to have at least some sort of idea about your industry, some sort of idea about the key points that you have, your product has versus, let's say, the competition. Why are they giving you shelf space versus somebody else? And how much money are they going to be making, and how are you going to support them and help them sell your product off their shelf. If you can sufficiently answer those questions, they should place an order, and then you should be able to make your first sale. And then what you then need to do is make sure you're nurturing that sale. So if you can get at least $2,000 PO, which is not a lot for a physical product, all you really need is 5 clients over the month, right? So you get 5 clients selling at 2,000 a month. You have successfully reached the first $10,000 a month, and that is not hard to do, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually surprisingly easy, right? So there's obviously a lot more that goes into it, and there's the entire shipping point of it, there's the compliance point, as I mentioned, a whole bunch of stuff. If you guys are really interested in shipping physical products and specifically supplements that I am quite expert and quite quite well versed in, I can definitely help people out. I don't offer courses, and I don't sell guides and all that sort of stuff. I can give you some general tips and advice in the comment section. I'm happy to help. And I don't believe I will ever be selling courses, because that is not my business model. But I do want to see people succeed. Now, what I do have is the digital business, which is what I'm going to go into. So if you guys are watching this video and you're selling digital business, you guys want to learn how to start up. Starting up a digital business in many ways can be a lot more difficult than a physical business, because you're up against so much more competition, but your ease of access is far greater. So your ability to start a digital product versus a physical product, you could start a digital product in one day and ship and have something to sell. That's huge, guys. That's ease of access, right? The problem that you and a lot of people in the space have is called distribution. Well, let's say you have a good digital product. Let's say you have an ebook or a course you want to sell, or you want to sell an app, or you want to sell a guide or something along those lines. It has to be digital. Your personal training course, whatever it may be. Got to worry about distribution. What is distribution? Effectively, it's marketing. So you need to be able to get your product in front of eyeballs. And if you can get your product in front of eyeballs, that's the first step, right? Somebody looks at whatever it is you're offering. They're looking at it, and the next step after they look at it is obviously what, guys? You gotta convince them. You gotta talk to them. You gotta hook them, right? You gotta make sure that when they are looking at your product, they get interested in whatever the pitch is, right? So you have to learn how to grab the attention of that customer long enough for them to then transition into the bread and butter of your offer, which is, what does your product do? What problem does it solve? Because a great pitch is something that you can say in a couple of words, but any great product really has a lot more nuances to it, a lot more technicalities, and that's when you go into the bread and butter of stuff. So to get to that point, you need to have a good, strong hook, and then very well structured bread and butter. The content of what you're selling has to be good, right? It has to be digestible, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Most buyers, they'll read something, usually they're scanning between a coffee and whatever, and if it's too much, too technical, jargony, they just tune out. They're like, if I can't understand this, I can't use it, and they just get scared, right? So your ability to communicate with the customer is vital. In fact, it is the most important part, because they're not playing with the thing. They can't really work it out on their own. They don't need to, right? Like with a physical product, they can inspect it. If it looks good, smells good, they can kind of get their own deductions, right? But with a digital product, if you're not doing the explaining properly, they're out. You've lost the sale, and that's it. You're finished on that front. So make sure when you are presenting your offer, it is clear and it is concise. Marketing. How do you market, though? How do you get your offer out there? How do you get eyeballs on it? Well, guys, if you're watching this now, you're on a platform, and this platform feeds you millions of videos every day. These videos, that's your marketing, right? You can pay for ads, but remember, the whole thing is you're starting from $0 to $10,000, which means you don't have investors, which means you're probably a solo entrepreneur, don't have a lot of money. This is something as a side hustle you're trying to build up, and you're trying to make money, not spend more money to it. You're trying to do it for as cheaply as possible. But what you need to do is you need to build a social media presence. You need to build content around your offer. You got to post. You got to post as often as you can. You need to make sure you're talking about your product because nobody else will for a long time, unless it's something revolutionary. And guys, on this channel, we're not talking about lotto tickets. We're not talking about those one-offs. We're not talking about the la-di-da, pie in the sky, $10,000 a month plus Higgsfield connector type of shit. This is not this channel. We're talking about the real, raw, down-to-earth, how things actually work methods, right? And unfortunately, those methods aren't sexy. They're just plain, boring, repetitive. They take a long time. And if you do it consistently, you will be successful. Simple as that. So what you need to do is, when you have your offer, concept, product, all you then got to worry about is the marketing, which will then handle the distribution, right? So your distribution is your marketing, your phrase, your who you are, and then you're talking about the product, right? How do you do that? As I said, you are watching this right now on YouTube. Great platform. Does it suck getting like no views for the first couple of videos? Sure, but then just keep grinding on and on and on, and that's it. That's how you make your views. Then you have Instagram and TikTok. Great platforms. Use them. Reddit. Start posting. And you're probably thinking, well, what kind of advice is this? I knew I could post on social media, Vlad. I knew I could post on Reddit and Instagram. I do that all the time. And my answer to that is, I know, but what do you want me to tell you? That there's a magic fairy out there that's going to do it for you, that there's some sort of secret life hack that we've all worked out that is different from what everyone else does. It doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, guys. There is no secret life hack. You got to get better at improving your content, at posting content, get the volume out there, and you're going to start getting watch. For example, even on this channel, this is a fairly new channel, right? And some of my reels, they get 800 views, which is not a lot. Like, there are reels that get a couple of thousand views, right? My other channel, I got 1.7 million views, but that's an unrelated channel, right? And sometimes it just takes throwing shit at the wall, and then eventually something's going to stick. That's just the way it works, guys, especially with this digital space. So keep pushing forward, keep grinding, keep getting stuff out there. And while you're building your app, while you're building your offer, while you're building your PDF, whatever it is you're trying to sell, start posting. Start posting regularly. Just get it out there. Post. Warms up the Instagram account, warms up the algorithm. And by the time you have a live product, there was already a little bit of momentum on the social media space for you to actually then start potentially grabbing some clients. And then that's when all the fun starts. And I promise you guys, if you watched up to this point and this far, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? When you got your first sale, when your first sale comes in from your first product, that first time you sell something, that feeling is incredible. It's ecstatic. Like, you feel so warm inside, so giddy. It's like the first time you have sex. It's like fucking amazing. You're like, this is the best thing ever. I want this all the time. This is the best, And when you get good at it, when you can repeat the process, that is when you get your real business, right? That's when it really starts to roll on. Then you can add more to it. You can put your little building blocks on it. You want to run more ads? You have money to run ads, right? You're gonna need to spend money anyway, because depending on what part of the world you are, your taxable income, if you can put some money towards ads, you'll at least reduce your taxable income a little bit. And look, I recommend opening up a LLC in Dubai, and that's a whole separate topic. I'm not going to get into that right now, but definitely do not open a company in a Western country at this point in time. That is a terrible idea, especially if you're digital. You do not need to do that. Anyway, I digress. That's a whole different topic. So guys, a first sale will come. Like I said, there are two methods, right? There are two different ways. You got your physical product way, which is easier to get your first couple of sales across the line, get that $10,000 a month. It's much easier. Second method is a little bit harder, but the ease of access is it, because this is harder to start. That's easier to start. You know, understand? And that's how you're going to make your first 10K, guys. And look, for all of you that are starting out, trust me, keep grinding. Keep your expenses low, but keep grinding. Do everything that you can that is free first until your first 10K starts rolling on, Then you can start looking at spending a little bit of money in different spots. And that's a whole separate video, guys. But if you like this bit of advice, this little bit of, it's a Kickstarter advice. If you like it, guys, leave a comment down below. Leave a like and hit the sub bell so you get these notifications so you can start learning a little bit more about what we do. Now, me personally, just to give you a bit of a background, I've owned 3 retail stores at the same time, which means I had to run a whole staff network. I've had to do payroll. I had to do a rostering, which is a whole pain in the ass. In addition to getting imported products, in addition to making sure my cash flow was steady. So I have a lot of business experience. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've been on both sides of the fence, and now on the digital side of the fence. All I can tell you is the experiences that you learn in business along the way is invaluable. Every mistake that you make is an experience, it's a lesson. Don't get disheartened when you lose a bit of money. I've lost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, luckily not millions, but I have lost money too, and I think everyone does along the way. So don't get disheartened. So my advice is, like I said, pick your side, start looking at distribution, do things for free for that first 0 to 10. And I wish you guys the very best of luck. And if you guys can, let me know what industry you are choosing down below. All right, guys. All the best to you. Fist you. And I'll see you on the next one.